Welcome to UNICEF House, and today we have a special guest. Warm welcome. You all might be asking, so why in the world is the secretary at UNICEF House? The Swachh Bharat Mission is marking 10 years.
2014 definitely marked a watershed in the sense that there was a very ambitious call to action. In the country, there were about 120 million toilets constructed over that 5 years. There are sizable numbers done even after that. So there's a lot to celebrate. UNICEF's partnership is something that we really treasure.
It's not a 10-year story, it's the beginning of a story.
Over half of our villages declared themselves ODF Plus model. The journey then in the last 5 years has been going beyond open defecation while sustaining it.
The Jan Andolan, which was a mass movement across India. How did that work?
Without people's active involvement, these are not ambitions that one can expect to actually realize. You've also seen the Swachh Bharat Mission quite closely. How would you rate it vis-a-vis other efforts to promote safe sanitation?
It's not about building toilets or making sure that you've got the piping in place. It's the social behavioral change. Welcome to UNICEF House, and today we have a special guest visiting us here at UNICEF House in Delhi, Secretary Vini Mahajan, who is the Secretary for the Ministry of Jal Shakti and a very important partner and friend to UNICEF, but also to all of India, as you have been leading the flagship programs of Swachh Bharat Mission and Jal Jeevan Mission. But before we start, I also just wanted to flag some of your other incredible accomplishments, which is inspiring for all of us, and especially the young people, to remember to study and work hard, that you have an MBA from the Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta, and earned your place on the honor roll. So a good reminder to us all that it matters to study hard. And before being in Delhi at the Ministry of Jal Shakti, that you were with the government of Punjab and the chief secretary there and the first woman chief secretary. This is inspiring for us, and especially for young men and young women, to see your pathway. So thank you. I might just ask, you all might be asking, so why in the world is the secretary at UNICEF House? And I would just say briefly that we've got a long partnership. We walked along the history wall. UNICEF has been working in India and with the Indian government for 75 years. And we saw the incredible accomplishments and advancements that India has made for her children. Immunization, nutrition, and very importantly, water, clean water, and safe sanitation. So we're here to talk about that progress. And the Swachh Bharat Mission is marking 10 years of progress, success across this incredibly diverse, beautiful, large country. And that's why we're here, and we're keen to hear from you, the expert on this. So warm welcome.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. You've been extremely generous to me personally, but also I'd really like to recognize the huge support and cooperation that we've received from various international partners, and certainly UNICEF's partnership is something that we really treasure. So over the years, you have been a very valuable partner to us, and I've personally seen how much engagement has been shown by your team in water and sanitation that I've been handling now for close to 3 years in Government of India. So thank you for that too.
This is a very important moment for India as we look at a bold, courageous mission that you launched 10 years ago. And it was big goals, big dreams, Swachh Bharat Mission. So as you look back at where you are today, what are the the progress, the success that you would want us to know, share, and learn from?
We know the impact of open defecation, not just on soil and water health, and thereby impacting health of children and the elderly and whole families. Also, so important for women to not have to go out in the open. There's a slow and steady progress had been made over the years. 2014 definitely marked a watershed in the sense that there was a very ambitious call to action given by the Prime Minister then to make the country open defecation free in a defined time frame. And when you look at the numbers in India, when you think of the number of towns and cities and households and people, the spread. So we have, for example, almost 600,000 villages. And at that point in time, less than 40% households in rural India had toilets. So this whole question of how do you get the toilets constructed at scale in very short period of time, but more than that, how do you get in the required behavior change? People understanding the importance of having a toilet and using a toilet and making sure the toilet remains functional. In 2019, by then, village after village, town and city after city, state after state started saying, okay, we've done it. We have become, as of now, open defecation free. All our households have access to toilets, are using the toilets. And so this was a bottom-up kind of an achievement. And I think that's what's remarkable about this. Certainly, starting from the direction, from the very top leadership, with a lot of personal stake, commitment, drive, Government of India through its ministries driving the agenda. But eventually, it was the local communities that owned it up and that said that we have done this. That was the big aha moment of 2nd October 2019. And that date actually also marks the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. This was a part of the Sustainable Development Goals as well. All countries were encouraged to achieve this goal by 2030. And so again, a matter of great pride that one of the larger contributors to the issue, given the size of the country and the scale of the problem here, had actually managed to become ODF well before that suggested deadline. The journey then in the last 5 years has been going beyond open defecation while sustaining it. In the country, there were about 120 million toilets constructed over that 5 years. There are sizable numbers done even after that. So that every new family, every new home, everyone who moves from one location to another must have a toilet. We also have this huge program going on for giving portable drinking water, the Jal Mission.
Yeah.
So as that has expanded to covering more than 78% rural households now, and then solid waste. So there's a lot of organic waste. There's also a lot of non-biodegradable waste. So all of that is now. And how do you use new technologies, new solutions? That's the story. That's the task as we go forward now.
And that's probably the challenge, is that you can't really, it's not a 10-year story. It's the beginning of a story. So there's a lot that you've started, but it's exciting to hear that you want to continue it.
Look, sanitation cannot be something that you say, I've done it and this is end of story.
Yeah.
Right? Even if
that'd be too easy.
Even in our own homes, if we don't regularly clean the home, you're going to have a dirty home. Your street will need regular cleaning, all of that. So it has to be a sustained effort. It's not something that I think one is looking at the end of. But certainly there are landmarks that we encounter on the way. One landmark, for example, for rural India is that very recently, over half of our villages declared themselves ODF plus model. So they've said that they're not only open defecation free, but they have put in place arrangements for solid and liquid waste management.
Right, taking the
And
big
so there-
picture, yeah.
Now there could be some gaps. Maybe they might need to put in some more efforts and all. But 300,000 villages in India are saying that, and the others are also moving ahead. So there's a lot to celebrate. But yes, we have to acknowledge that the challenges are not only large, but they will continue to gain complexity as we go forward.
It sounds though that India keeps a step ahead. I think a few things that I would say, leadership matters. So Mahatma Gandhi, his leadership for India, for the world, and also as an engagement of community, the Prime Minister identifying this as a national mission,
Yes.
your leadership to make sure it keeps going with you and your teams across states. And one of the things, before I even came to India or even knew I might get to come to India, I heard about Swachh Bharat Mission because from our global level, it's a program that we've seen that we can learn from, not just for India, but globally. And it may pick up on your engagement with communities, the Jan Andolan, which was a mass movement across India. How did that work? Or are there successes or impact that you would talk about there?
I think there was early recognition from the Prime Minister down to leadership chain that without people's active involvement, these are not ambitions that one can expect to actually realize. Because these are eventually, we are a democracy. We cannot push things down people's throats, and why should we? If indeed there is a value in the activity, and we know that, but it helps when you have respected organizations saying, okay, so many diarrheal deaths saved because of Swachh Bharat Mission, so many child lives saved, people's savings on account of better health, so they don't lose wages, they don't have to spend out of pocket on healthcare. So if a respected organization puts out those figures, like every family has saved 50,000 every year due to Swachh Bharat Mission. So these are clear, tangible benefits. If the research shows that women believe that their safety, dignity, 93% of women attribute improved safety and dignity due to the presence of a toilet, right? So then these are messages that need to reach the community so that the behavior, then there is a buy-in and it gets embedded. So I think Jan Bhagidari, therefore, literally that means people's participation, became a very important pillar. There were other very important pillars also, partnerships with global agencies, local community-based organizations, all of that. Of course, political will was another very important pillar because it does make a difference when popular leaders speak about an issue convincingly. And so you had all of these, but I think something that really stood out in our efforts, and again, given the size and scale that it involved, was really people's participation or Jan Bhagidari.
And I think just to make sure that our listeners and our watchers don't miss, I think we say safe sanitation or clean water, but you've outlined that really saves lives. It improves health. And you talked about women's safety. So this is a program that goes, when you talk open defecation free and safe sanitation, this is really improving health and safety and dignity.
Absolutely. There's research that shows that stunting of children, safe sanitation, clean water are some of the most important determinants or ways in which you can avoid stunting. Infant mortality caused by diarrheal deaths, the out-of-pocket expenses and costs leading to poverty. There's so much slip back into poverty because of healthcare costs.
Exactly.
So these are known, but they've also been researched, documented, and established. So it's not just anecdotal. These are hard impacts the whole issue of making your environment sort of cleaner, so your groundwater sources remain protected if there's no contamination with fecal matter. So all of that.
Absolutely. And I think turning a little bit, engaging communities with that knowledge, that understanding, but also giving opportunities. I've only been here about 2 years. As I said before we started, everyone, one of my first privileges was to meet you as I was introducing myself to India.
It's a pleasure to meet you then. It's a pleasure to meet you
again.
now.
But women have been given the skill. So I met some in Maharashtra, women who have been trained as plumbers. And so they're being given a skill, a livelihood. And I think that's an additional, I found it very inspiring. I have to mention meeting Jal Vahinis, Rani Mistress, Jal Sahilis, young women who proudly said, you know, this is a skill that we now have.
In this program, they became actually partners and even leaders in the attempt to change the status quo. So the Rani Mistris, for example, that you mentioned, traditionally in India, certainly in rural India, the masons are men, partly because they're working outside, many of them are traveling, and the head mason in a sense is the Raj Mistri. So it was Swachh Bharat that propagated the concept of the Rani Mistri, the woman who had, you know, got trained on doing masonry work, and they did the toilets. Fantastic work, the Jal Bahini. So women associating themselves, encouraged to associate themselves, and happily, you know, enthusiastically becoming a part of this effort. And it's so charming, you know, so many of them actually then moved on to other leadership roles. So people tell us there are so many sarpanches who've emerged out of these. Leaders in the self-help groups, etc., dealing with sanitation and allied issues. So they've grown. Women certainly have been such a lovely part of this whole effort. Like I said, they're not just beneficiaries. They're at least partners, and in many cases, they're leading the effort.
They're leading, yeah. And I think you've given them skills and knowledge, but confidence. So there's a confidence that I sense in kind of what you've seen and what you're hearing from them. And that is transferable, that skill of confidence and being able to continue to be those agents and leaders of change. So because we're at UNICEF, I want to make sure we don't miss talking about children. And I think in terms of messages about what you would like to see India's children know, understand, a message for children around, because this, for them to continue to build on.
Absolutely. So we definitely need the youth and the children on our side. So we see the children through, in some sense, two prisms. One, they must receive the kind of wash facilities that they deserve. So in their schools, in their Anganwadis, in their homes, they must have access to clean toilets, to hand washing facilities, clean water, etc. And this is something that they must get to expect as, as something which must be there. It shouldn't be a surprise. It should be an expectation that it will be there, so that they start using these at young ages. And the second, we do expect that if there is an area of intervention required where these facilities are not available or not being used or need to be augmented, then having gotten used to it themselves, and if they understand how it can be done, they will persuade their families and their communities to do the right thing.
Yes, and I have to say, for UNICEF, I think one is the beneficiary to have the services, to have access at home and at school to the safe sanitation, clean water, and then at the same time, the expectation with the knowledge that they conserve water, they are recycling in the lifestyles. I think that actually is very empowering and enabling. I think two things. At UNICEF, we have found sometimes the most effective way to reach a community to make sustained change is teaching something at school, and exactly as you said, the child comes home and talks about it with the parents. I think Swachh Bharat has created the dialogue that the parents and the community leaders understand it. The children now have a knowledge and they can talk about it and grow with it. And your point on climate and lifestyles, UNICEF is working through its water and sanitation programs to add that climate change, that environment sustainability. And youth becomes a very important point of helping us as adults understand how to live sustainably. Thanks to Swachh Bharat opening that dialogue as well as around the ecosystem of a safe water, safe sanitation, the entire environment.
It's their future. They deserve to take charge.
Yes, yes. As we often say, nothing about us without us. So then the good knowledge, the good ideas. So nothing without you. So bring the good ideas.
You've also seen the Swachh Bharat Mission quite closely. How would you rate it vis-a-vis other efforts to promote safe sanitation? And do you think there is any way or any learning that could have formed a part of this program but did not, and that we should be looking at now?
I think that there are so many key elements that, one, as you said at the opening, Secretary, that we can continue, that you will continue to build on as India to make it stronger. I think what I find impressive, first and foremost, is this fundamental investment from leadership, both in the idea that safe sanitation is a fundamental way to improve survival because of what we were speaking about, health. And having that access to safe sanitation, that knowledge does improve a child's chance of surviving, thriving, right? A healthy child who isn't struggling with feeling safe, a young girl going out at night to go to the toilet, or less diarrhea, less sick, studies better. So she'll perform better in schools. The second key thing that you reminded me as we were talking is the comprehensive approach, which it sounds like India will continue to build on. But the idea that it's not about building, as you said, it's not about building toilets or making sure that you've got the piping in place. It's the social behavioral change. And again, making sure people understood why have safe sanitation, why the hygiene. And that, I think, got into a visceral reaction of the communities understanding it, moms and dads, panchayats wanting to make sure their communities understood that we're going to invest in this. And I think that comprehensive investment in this is going to improve not just having open defecation free, but we'll be healthier, I'll be healthy enough to keep going to work, you'll be able to healthy study. That leads it also what we talked about, women building their confidence, giving them livelihood opportunities. So that comprehensive approach I think is important and is a lesson I've learned just watching how Swachh Bharat has succeeded. And I think it leads me to the third is, as we walked that 75th anniversary is, as I told you, Secretary, we have an empty space. So the innovations yet to come, I think we had a little bit of the early days from 2015 when we started working with you on Swachh Bharat, but I'm excited that maybe it's time to add another picture or slide of what the next innovation that you've learned from. And so I think as you're building on, as you were saying, looking at all the recycling, the entire ecosystem. And I think it's global, and we really want to build on the G20, taking that systematic information sharing, lesson sharing. I think the only other thing I would say that's an important message is your reminder and emphasis on partnership. I think it's across the national level, it's with our UN partners, it's the private sector has come in and helped us, school teachers, parents themselves. And that partnership is the only way that things really ever work.
Absolutely. The corporate leadership also pitched in so majorly. I mean, you wouldn't think perhaps that, this issue would have ignited so much interest, but there was so much of CSR spent on
Exactly.
Sanitation, and there was continued importance given.
Exactly, and that probably helped make it work. Thank you, Secretary. And again, thank you for creating a model that we can continue to build on across India, and also a model that I know that UNICEF believes we can genuinely build on globally. And it's a model of really bringing in leadership from across all sectors, as you talked about, and enabling and empowering communities to really sustain the change. Thank you. Thank you all for watching and listening and engaging around the next and continued journey on Swachh Bharat. Thank you for marking 10 years of Swachh Bharat with us, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.